Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Good evening, everybody. Hello. Welcome to Dissident Dispatch. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman, and this is a show that I was doing weekly for a while, but I had to take a pause. We had the holidays. We had a lot going on. Been starting a new job, so that's been great. But I've been following along pretty closely as to what's been going on in education while I have not been here talking to you. And I've collected a pile, as Rush might have said, a stack of stuff. And I want to go through it. The title of today's broadcast, and if you're brand new to the channel, by the way, please consider subscribing so you can be notified when I make more content, live or otherwise. Please like and share this broadcast out so that we can get more people here. Hi, David. Welcome. So glad to see you. So we can engage, so we can chat about this a little bit. There's going to be a lot. So that's the housekeeping. My website is now live too. TheReasonWeLearn.com is live. There is a discussion forum there you can join. And hopefully we can start building a community around finding alternatives for education. So that's up and live. Locals still exist. There are lots of ways you can support my work, but today we're just going to talk about some news. The title of the broadcast is, listening in on the WEF and friends. This is going to be focusing more on and friends. And by and friends, I don't necessarily mean any specific organization. It's going to be a lot of different people and entities that are essentially carrying out work right here in America, but also Canada and the rest of the Western world, that is aligned with what people in the globalist sort of WEF, UNESCO space would like to see, or the direction that they would like the world to go, even if they're not specifically pulling puppet strings. So I want to make this very clear. I'm not here to tell you that people in Davos are sitting there going, dance, little puppets. That's not really what's happening. What I am trying to get across to you, however, is that the mindsets, the belief system, the worldview, the goals of the people who met last week in Davos are represented in our institutions right here in the United States at a level, at a high enough level and and broadly enough that they are impacting us every single day, whether we realize it or not. And they're impacting our children every single day in their classrooms. And I say are, like present tense, but I want to make it clear this has been going on for a long time. And it really didn't even start with the WEF. So in other words, these ideas have been percolating probably for over 100 years. We've talked about this. James Lindsay's talked about it. We've talked about the different philosophers behind this, the postmodernists, the Marxists, Heidegger, Foucault, Paulo Freire, et cetera. We could go on all day about all the influencers. But what you end up having is two visions for humanity. You have the Western Enlightenment vision. They gave birth to the United States, and they, that's the individual rights, natural rights, voluntary mutual exchange, everything. They gave birth to the United States. Somewhere along the way, probably about in the progressive era, as we've talked about on this channel, a group of people said, no, that's not working. We don't like it. It's inequitable. There's too many poor people. It's whatever complaints. Not working fast enough to create some kind of utopia. Ironically, I don't think our founders really had a utopia in mind. I think they realized the natural state of man was chaos and war and all kinds of things. And they just wanted to make things better than that. I don't think anybody in, the Federalist Papers had any aspirations to utopia, but there have always, since time immemorial, been people who wanted to build a heaven on earth. And those people still exist, and now they have the internet. And lots and lots and lots of money. So things are escalating. We have all the impulses to organize the world and organize the economy and organize people and make people behave in certain ways to bring about a better world. Like I said, they've got a lot of money, they've got technology, they've got a lot of people who find that appealing, and it's spreading out in our institutions. It has been for some time. So and I noticed somebody said, Chris Rufo recently said, don't worry about the WF, they're not the problem. He's both right and wrong, meaning he's right in that, like I said, they're not up there pulling puppet strings. They're not sitting there Davos going, we're going to make them do what we want. But their ideas are compelling to a lot of people with money and power. And so in that sense, they matter. They matter because they bring these people together. They matter because they give us sort of, credibility to these ideas. They make it seem like this is desirable. They have a brand that people who are only half paying attention think, well, what's wrong with that? They're just trying to make the world better, right? So they're good at marketing what is, as I said, essentially anti-American, anti-individual, anti-natural rights, anti-everything those of us who are sort of patriots and individualists and all that, Western Enlightenment appreciators, whatever. Republicans, and I don't mean in the political sense, I mean people who like the idea of a republic in the United States and not just, we would be one state in the world order. Like, they're against everything we value. And so to that extent, they matter, because the more they can persuade people that their values are better, or that they can somehow bring about this fantasy utopia that they're talking about, the more people, money, power they're going to have on their side. So they're not benign. That's my point. They're not benign. They're no more benign than saying, Bill Gates and his billions are benign, or Mark Zuckerberg is burnout. I mean, these people have agendas. They have things they would like to see happen. They have things they'd like to see happen that I would not like to see happen. And I think that many of you would not like to see happen. So that's why we're here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you going back to 26. Well, I'm trying to think, which should I do first? Yeah, I'm going to go back to 2016 and just show you some predictions that they had for the world in 2030. Now we're closer to 2030 than we were in 2016. So let's take a look at what they thought things would be like. And I think it's relevant because you'll see how kind of close we are, or how we're moving that direction. So these were just some predictions they made in 2016. The all products have become services prediction. This is the you'll own nothing and be happy thing that you hear about. So when you've heard that, it probably sounded really sinister, like they're going to take all my stuff. No, not literally. They're not going to take all your stuff. They're just arguing that you shouldn't actually own anything, that everything should be a service that you rent as needed. Now, I would hope that most people immediately realize how completely ridiculous that is, because of a wide variety of things, and how much that will reduce your individual options and your choices for what, if you want to customize things, you won't be able to, because you have to rent it on the fly. It's whatever's there. And then there, will there be enough? What if 100 people want to ride a bicycle at the same time and there are only 10 bikes? So it's, but this is what they mean by you'll own nothing. Okay. There's a global price on carbon. So they've been talking about the, global carbon emissions. So they're really hung up on climate change. When I show you the program for Davos this year, you'll realize like climate change is big for them. Now, just remember, and it's kind of a joke on the internet, we're also the carbon they want to reduce, meaning a lot of their ideas really come down to reducing consumption. And in order to do that, you'd have to reduce the number of people. Right? Because we live, we breathe, we exhale, we burn fuels, whether they're fossil or otherwise. We need energy. We need to heat our homes. We need to cook. We need to do things. So the fewer of us there are, the less of that there will be. And that's ironically easier to get to scale, like reducing the number of us, than to produce these alternative energy sources to serve 7 billion people or more. So that's a big goal of theirs. Climate change. Oh, look at that. US dominance is over. We have a handful of global powers. So while they don't have an explicit goal, you'll see that a lot on the internet. The WEF does not have an explicit, that is a fact check. We're going to fact check that right out of existence. No, they don't have one. They have dozens. This is a list of 8. I have another one that's a list of 30. I'm not going to show you because it goes on forever. But they have a lot of little fantasy notions of how things should work. And US dominance being over is on their list of things they would like to see. They do not think we are a force for good in the world. The American exceptionalism model is not something the WEF supports, believes in, etc. That's very, very important to keep in mind. Now, you may agree with them that either our dominance is over because reasons, I mean, it's just happening, or it should be over. But remember something that they don't seem to want to talk about, even though China, literally China is all over Davos last week, but not the United States. We have individual representatives from the United States who are American, but there's not the, the this of China, the that of China, the this. I mean, that's what they had. So I'm just saying, you're not going to have US dominance be over and China not take our place. Just get that out of your head. So this whole, like, there'll be, nation states will stage a comeback and there'll be lots of little power. It'll be China, because China's been running around the world pretty much like buying up property and buying up governments and buying up resources and exerting economic control on a mass scale. So that is happening. That's one of the things they would like to see, and it is happening. Farewell hospital, hello homespital. I don't know. We've seen hospitals turn to no place you want to be, right? I mean, I was just in one last February and have vowed that I will die at home before I'll go back to one, except for maybe a broken bone. It's out of control. And it's hard when you see how completely incompetent everything is now in healthcare, not just in this country, but in other countries as well. You can't help but wonder if it's intentional. You can't help but wonder if all the COVID policies and the vaccine policies and firing people and reducing and bringing in these hospitalists and, AI to like diagnose you and all this, if that's not part of, moving in the general direction of we're not going to have this kind of healthcare system anymore. If not, it's a giant coincidence. It's really coincidental. Or let's say the people in positions of power that could have seen the hospital systems breaking down and becoming less reliable and said, no, we can't have that, maybe stood down and just were like, this is where we need to go anyway, guys. We need to go anyway. So let's just let it happen. Any of the above could have happened, or all of the above could have happened, or none of the above. It's just could be total incompetence and the whole thing's falling apart. I don't know. You be the judge, but I'm just telling you some of these things align timing wise. We eat much less meat, and coming soon, eggs. Coming soon, Bill Gates said yesterday on Twitter, we should not be eating eggs because he didn't get the memo that lipid cholesterol theory is dead and has been for many years, but he's still talking about us eating less cholesterol. Okay. So there's a war on meat. Unless they're bugs. They want to see bugs, which is disgusting. Today's Syrian refugees, 2030 CEOs, no comment. The values that built the West have been tested to a breaking point. Again, it's all in there. The values of the West have been tested to the breaking point. What? We forgot the checks and balances that bolster our democracies they're at peril. This isn't a democracy. And not all the democracies out there have checks and balances. In fact, they don't. There are lots and lots of democracies that have zero systems of checks and balances. The United States is relatively unique in the number and variety of checks and balances we have. And they still don't work that great. But why don't they work well? It's not because there's a flaw in the design. It's because they've been corrupted by a variety of things. But they're saying, unfettered majoritarianism. That's not what we have here. The attacks on our system of checks and balances. You mean like cheating? Bribes? Lies? Nepotism? Career politicians? I mean, we could go on and on. Oh, guess what? We're going to Mars, right? Well, Elon Musk would like us to go to Mars, but we'll be ready to move humans. No, who's we? Who's we? So then they say we're going to discover alien life, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's the 8. Now I'm going to take you back farther. That was 2016. That was their little 8, things, their little visions for 2030. Now we're going to go back to 2000, the year 2000. So 23 years ago, roughly. And this is Charlotte Iserbyt. If you're not familiar with Charlotte Iserbyt, and you're interested in education, I highly recommend that you watch this entire video. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this and put it in the, I'm going to put it in here for you to, have. I'm going to pin it to the top. But this is a video that you're going to want to watch at some point in its entirety, I think, because there's just so much meat here. But I want to play some portions of it that speak to some things that are going on now. Again, to bolster my point that it doesn't really matter if the WEF is leading on these things or if they're coming in behind, if they're just like on the same road as the people who, from the Frankfurt School or from wherever, decades and decades ago, who said, maybe the United States doesn't need to be the United States, or maybe we need more Marxism, or maybe we need to be part of a one world government, or all of the above. It doesn't matter. It's happening. So whoever you want to point a finger at, it's kind of irrelevant. The point I want to make is it is happening right before your very eyes. They're using your children to put the final nail in the coffin, and you need to see it so you can try to take steps to stop it. We're almost at the 11th hour here, guys. Because here she is in 2000 talking about things to do with education and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Let me just make sure my audio is set to the right thing. Hold on one second. Nope, I won't be able to play this because it is not the Yep, I won't be able to play this at the moment. I'm going to have to set something up for you. I have a StreamYard mic that I need to be able to set up, and it's not working. Okay, so let's move on. In your free time, I won't be able to play this for you because my audio is not set up properly, but watch this. In particular, watch application learning, education, and then I would recommend at least you do like the dialectic. Okay. So you can watch all of it. All of it's important, but those are the key things, because when you listen to her, you will understand how they align with the WEF's program of stuff, from, recently. In particular, I want to show you, draw your attention to things like, where is it? AI and white collar jobs. And we'll talk a little bit more about this with some other materials I'm going to show you. So there's a lot of focus at WEF, also UNESCO, also in SEL and things going on in this country about AI to do with jobs, careers, education, et cetera. You're going to hear it a lot. I just got something today from a company I used to work for, Kubrio. They're a new alternative education program, and they're super excited for their subscribing students to get involved in AI with their learning. So, I mean, you might think it's great. You might think it's wonderful. I don't want to, tell you it's all bad, but just understand that AI is a big thing for these people. And this is in particular what they're saying. Recent breakthroughs in machine learning mean that increasingly complex cognitive tasks and creative production can be automated. So what does that mean for the people, the humans who have those jobs? What does it mean for knowledge-based workers? Okay. Are the implications of these developments being overstated, or are we approaching an inflection point in a new disruptive era for knowledge workers? Now, I can tell you, whether we are or we aren't, there's a lot of money riding on the proposition that we are. There's a lot of people in education banking on it. There are a lot of people in data mining and data, analysis that are trying to get us there and to assess our children to see where our children can be plugged in to this new world, whether that's what they want or not, whether it's what you envision for them or not, whether any individual wants this or not, they're being like scrutinized through the system, through technology, through everything they touch to figure out where they belong in all this. Lots of command and control going on without you even realizing it. So that's why I wanted you to see the Charlotte Iserbyt stuff. Okay. So we went through that. Now what I want to show you is I'm just going to go to a wonderful series of essays written by, or articles rather, written by Lisa Logan, our friend Lisa Logan. She put these together for the Ohio Press Network. It's a 4-part series. I will put the link in the chat. Again, this is something that you can read in its entirety. But I want to go through some of this. We've talked a lot about SEL on the channel. We've talked a lot about transformative SEL and how transformative SEL is very closely aligned with this new economy, this new AI gig economy, where they want to change the future of work. They want the future of work to be technology based. They want to assess who's going to be good at it, who should do what, where they should be plugged in. And we've even gotten down to the level of trying to assess the kids and deliver specific curriculum materials, specific lessons to individual children based on surveys and assessments, so that the program they're going to learn in school is literally customized to what it's determined they're good at or not good at a very young age. And some people think this is fabulous. Some people think this is so great. I don't have to worry. I don't have to leave things up to chance. My child will be employed because they'll be taught from a very young age how to be prepared for the job they're naturally, perhaps genetically predisposed, whatever. Okay. Some people think it's great to control risk that tightly. Other people, this girl, think it's absolutely awful and completely destroys individual liberty and comes from a place of deep disturbance in the brain as far as control freakishness. Like the idea that you could do this effectively, that people, the humans in charge of designing the programs or even administering the surveys or evaluating the kids or printing out the materials or assessing, the idea that there's that much competence to go around to make this work well for individuals is delusional. It's just delusional. I mean, these are people who can't teach a kid how to read. They're like, oh, but the AI will do it. I'm like, yes, but who designed the AI and who's implementing the AI and who's walking into the classroom and taking whatever it is and giving it to the kid or setting them up on the computer, and how much incompetence can, add up when it's technology doing it? Because now you don't even have a human with judgment in between to go, wait, what? This isn't your lesson. What? This isn't right. This isn't for you. You were just having a bad day that day that you had the survey. No. Let me fix this. That won't even be happening. So you could have a kid who's just like, the machine has diagnosed you with that, or the machine has decided you are good at this. Here, all your lessons. You can go months on end and be doing the wrong thing. So this is very, this is important here. I'm going to bring this up, what David's saying. Hold on. He says, some people have no God, but they cannot deal with the world without God. And so they take on the role themselves. It never goes well. I think that's a fascinating point. And one we'll talk some more about, because look what we're about to talk about. Spiritual soup. Okay. Spirituality. That's a big thing they talked about at Davos too. And it's something that's starting to infiltrate with SEL. So now we've got what James and I talked about in the last live show about the occult and all that. And then Davos, and now this, and SEL. And so it's all coming together. So let's take a look. The movement to water down and wokeify religious traditions. So what Lisa's talking about here is the globalists, the people who are influencing our education system, who want to influence our economy, who want to influence pretty much everything that we're doing, are trying to get in and mush all the religious traditions together and make one. And this is what she says. Unlike religion, which is structured around a belief system with a specific doctrine, e.g. the Bible, Quran, Bhagavad Gita, etc., or that guides the way spirituality denotes a broad concept of a belief in something beyond the self, a person can be both spiritual and religious at the same time. But there are a growing number of individuals who are classifying themselves as spiritual but not religious. These people, referred to as nuns, NONES, do not affiliate with any religion and often dabble in a variety of practices from multiple faiths to find their purpose and meaning in life. That doesn't mean nuns have no belief system. Often, thought worlds such as patriotism or environmentalism, which are usually moral concerns with spiritual underpinnings, become part of their life's creed. So environmentalism, global warming, or climate change. Climate change at this point is very similar to some kind of a religion, as is critical theory and SEL. We talked about this and about the Fetzer Institute and Alice Bailey and all the stuff. And Lisa gets into that in one of the parts of these pieces. So she talks about it here. Diluted doctrine and religious homogeneity. The Fetzer Institute reported on the rise of nuns in their 2015 report, Where We Belong, Mapping American Religious Innovation. Religious innovation. Did you know that was happening? Which surveyed the changing context of religion in America and examined different denominations and communities working in an altered context from traditional faiths. One of the 7 key themes that these spiritual communities shared was that their experience of truth supersedes doctrine. An example of this was the group The Neighborhood Halakha, which attracts unmosqued Muslims and focuses conversation on the lived experience, does that sound familiar, of Islam rather than doctrinal teachings. So let's stop for a second and back up to what I said at the very beginning about these divergent worldviews. The Western Enlightenment ideas are that truth exists and the goal of education is to pursue truth, to identify, learn it, pursue it, exalt it. Truth is out there. Truth is a thing. Okay. And this other view is that truth is not really a thing. Truth is in what you individually experience. It's very postmodern. It's Rousseau. It's my truth, your truth. We're having a subjective experience on this planet. And the thing is, if that's what you want to believe, you're going to almost have to come up with some kind of group thing that holds you all together, because otherwise people are like almost living in different realities. And trying to wrangle people back to a communal faith becomes almost essential, because you don't have doctrinal truth, rules, laws to attach to and say, this is how we live according to these things. Okay, now you can go do your own thing. You just can't do these 10 things. Don't do these 10 things. And the other stuff that you do is like, whatever, just don't cross me. Okay. But if you live in this subjective reality without that list of 10 things, without any of that, if you don't agree to like meld with everybody or have some kind of like communal something, what do you have? Chaos. So it's almost like they're trying to herd cats is what it feels like to me. How can you, I just don't get it. So like I said, I don't get it because I'm firmly over here in Western land. And there are plenty of people call me a dinosaur and tell me that's my problem and I'm all calcified in the brain and I need to get with the program. So be it. You be the judge. But that's what they want to do. All right. So Fetzer expressed its interest in supporting this rising tide of millennials whose generational shift is fundamentally challenging traditional forms of religious community and theology to advance the emerging global movement towards spiritual transformation, a spiritual transformation that seeks to sacrifice the purity of religious beliefs on the altar of equity. In other words, mass death. But anyway, my bias is leaking out. Okay. Like I said, you've got people who sort of abandoned doctrinal truth, abandoned the traditional understanding of truth, probably unmoored floating around. We have a lot of mental illness right now in the West. We have a lot of unhappy people. We have a lot of people with identity crises. We have a lot of problems. And I think rather than go back to the religious traditions, they're trying to make a new one to fill that void. And equity is their heaven, is their goal. Like it is trying to create some kind of utopia or heaven on earth where everyone is equal. Everyone has everything they need, regardless of where they started, what their talents are, what their effort is, all of it. They just will have everything they need. Well, this is obviously based on a complete lack of understanding for how anything works, in my opinion. And yet there are millions and millions of people who think this is doable. And they're teaching this to our kids. A disproportionate number of them are teachers, and they're teaching this worldview and mindset to our children. So she talks about they had a convening. I mean, they came together and had this little pilgrimage and whatever, bridging American religion and spiritual seekers. They'd like to create a new American religion. Of course, religion is one of the things they want to reimagine, just like they want to reimagine food, reimagine the economy, reimagine marriage, reimagine gender. These are people who genuinely don't like reality, don't like the world, don't like anything as it is. Back in the day, it was like, the status quo is a little restrictive. I want to wear pants. I'd like to cut my hair short, and I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to go to work. That was, the reality we didn't like. We didn't like tinker around the edges, whatever. Now it's like, no, none of this. All of it, gone. I don't want any of it. Let's just reimagine all of it. And it feels very impatient to me. And I think a lot of bad things could happen on the way to attempting to get to where they want. Also, we don't really know what they intend for those of us who like things the way they are. And I don't mean they're perfect, but we just aren't really ready to give up our traditions. We're not really ready to give up our culture, our values. I'm not really sure what they have in store for us. But folks like those at the Fetzer Institute and its partners desire religious pluralism. Will that look like freedom of religion with no judgment, or more like state-sanctioned religion? Will citizens who hold to the religious doctrines be labeled extremists? I think we have had some hints, haven't we? Right? We've had some hints. What happened just last week to that hockey player? Sorry, name escapes me. What happened? He didn't want to wear a pride jersey to a game because it conflicted with his religious beliefs. And you would think that he threatened to chop someone's head off the way he was treated. He shouldn't play. Blah, 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 blah. He should stop hiding behind his religion. That's his problem. Stop cherry picking religion to, you're such a bigot. Hide your bigotry. I could just feel the love and tolerance coming from the people who wanted to demand we wear the jersey. So I think we have a clue about how that's going to go. Yeah. That's just one tiny little isolated example. Imagine how big it could get. So then this is part 2. She has One Nation Under Mob with Spirituality and Democracy for All. And she says, this article, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we go into white supremacy is the problem. And, we've seen that, right? Everything that happens now is being translated through that lens of racial justice, right? If they can. Even things where people get it wrong. So the little 6-year-old brought a gun to school, shot his teacher in the chest or whatever. People all over the internet. If, it was a little white child, if a black child did this, blah, 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 bad thing would happen. Except the child was black. That's how far it's gone. The gun school must be white. No, because a lot of school shooters are white. Most of them have been. And so it was just assumed. And started making its way around Twitter. That little white kid, 6-year-old, must have been him. No, wasn't. Mm-hmm. Still encountering people who don't know that, though. That's how it works. Everything is through the what I assume lens in both directions. If I told you a store was looted and, cleaned out within 10 minutes and people ran to their car with all the stuff stuffed in a bag, tell the truth. what would you imagine the perpetrators look like? Right? That's how insidious it is. That's how insidious it is. You see 4 or 5 videos, whatever, and you just assume from then on that you don't even need to tell me. I'm going to assume it's this. You could be wrong. They want you to be wrong. When I say they, I'm saying the people who are trying to push the equity thing on us love this division. This justifies every step they take to push equity. See, you're racist. See, you're a bigot. See. So that's a big deal. That's not going to stop anytime soon. And that's making its way deeper and deeper into the curriculum in our schools in every subject. So then she's got taking a deeper look into the projects of former White House Domestic Policy Council members leading this initiative being the people. What is this? What's the initiative here? She's talking about dignity.us. Okay. It's a bipartisan team, the hidden agenda. Melody Barnes, she's got a bunch of names in here. So they're pushing critical theory and social justice activism into the state education system through mental health initiatives. So that we got the SEL and mental health initiatives all coming together. And that's how they're getting it in there. Now, what's the goal of this? It's not just because they want equity and, oh, isn't that beautiful? They want to solidify the power in the Democratic Party. So if they have the Democratic Party be the place where all this equity stuff lives, where CRT is championed, where SEL is championed, where we're going to constantly throw money at the public school system and we're going to make sure this is all in there, they want to solidify that power. That is not to say that Republicans are fighting this very well. They're not at all. Like at all. It's pathetic. It's just to say that the Democrats are better organized to try to make this work for them. They are leveraging it to their advantage. Republicans are just sort of feebly standing around going, bad, I think. Wait, it's in my state? Are you sure? I was told it wasn't because the state is red. Nope, right there under your nose. I'm going to show you some stuff in Iowa. So yeah, they're just not fighting it. So the Democrats are cleaning up. All right. Then again, we see with the pluralism, if you're not sure what pluralism is relative to republicanism, you might want to, or individualism, you might want to look into that because that's important. That's that whole, community group, tribal. It's not what we were. And so this is what's going on. Pluralism in a democracy versus republic. Pluralism was the native condition of America at its birth. It arose from the coexistence of groups within the political community who held different views in regard to the most supreme questions concerning the nature and destiny of man, which are basically religious. The founders of our country had to figure out how much a community of such incompatible faiths could come together as a society, agree to live in peace, and cooperate to achieve the material goals of the community. Their solution was the U.S. Constitution, a set of principles that motivated the various religious groups, despite their differences, to participate in the political process. So we had protection of minority groups because the individual is the smallest minority there is. It was genius. It was really genius if you think about it. I mean, they made a few mistakes, but that was genius. Well, we're returning to this squaring off of like, we're this group and that group and the other group, not so much by religion, but by race, by class, by gender, by all these other things. And you're going to have this new sort of pluralism of people with very different ideas about how things should work. And how we're going to get them all to work together. Well, I guess they want to put in place, rather than having, the Bill of Rights work anymore, because that's not equal. That's not going to give them equity. So they'll probably want to come up with this religion of equity, and that will be how we decide everything. Let's see. Yeah. So because the Constitution protects minority beliefs. It says, are your religious beliefs a threat to democracy? History has shown that establishing a new religion or spiritual movement can actually end up causing a very motivated mob. ISIS? If individuals don't convert to the state-sanctioned version of morality because of their religious beliefs, will they be considered a threat to the country? Again, I go back to the hockey player, or a doctor who doesn't want to perform an abortion, or coming soon, doctors who don't want to lop off the perfectly healthy breasts of a young woman who claims that she's a man. I don't want to do that. It goes counter to my religious beliefs. It goes counter to everything I stand for. Okay, you can't be a doctor anymore. Or maybe coming soon, we're going to fine you. And maybe farther down the line, we're going to put you in prison. So, we're already seeing it in, little isolated examples of where if you adhere to a traditional religion, Catholicism, Judaism, something like that, and they want to claim that it's some kind of bigotry, that it's an extremist view that runs counter to the new morality being these people these are the people you have to respect, revere, preferred pronouns, whatever it is, then you are the extremist, not them. Not them. So that's part 2. Part 3, she goes on to, creating the nation of nuns and talks some more about it, the 5 stages of religious change. This is from the Fetzer Institute. You can go here and look at, how this is following along with the Fetzer Institute has wanted and done. I encourage you to read it. Again, as James and I covered, Fetzer Institute is connected to the Lucis Trust. Lucis Trust, formerly the Lucifer Publishing House, is housed at the UN building. They are the publishing company of the UN, and they are very tightly interwoven with UNESCO. Fetzer is a big funder of Castle, SEL. So is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So, so these things are all connected. No, there's no one going, dance, but they're all connected. They all buy into this, think this is great. They're all different organizations or different groups of people with lots of money and power who don't like America the way it was. They don't want it to be like that. They don't want the world to be the way it was. This is just not what they want. They have a different vision for how humans should live on planet Earth, and they're throwing all of their money and all of their power behind it. And it's not something you can just ignore and say that because there's no one grand poobah sitting at the top of it, with petting his cat, that, we don't have to worry about it. Of course we do. We've had to worry about it for close to 100 years. We just haven't been doing a good job. And we woke up at COVID and said, oh my God, because it just kind of reached critical mass where we can now see it. So that's that. And the next installment is that social emotional learning is unconstitutional. I hope that goes without saying. We've covered it so much on this channel about how it is kind of like a religion. SEL seeks to bring about a religious transformation where equity is the highest value. Equity, the pursuit of equity is like the pursuit of the kingdom of heaven on earth. That's the closest I can get you to it in religious understanding. And, God is there really isn't one. there isn't one. Each individual person gets to be God, but according to the intersectional matrix of who's got the most victimhood. That's how that works. So that's something you're going to want to pay attention to, is what she's looking into. So if you're new to the whole SEL conversation, familiarize yourself, go check my playlist for SEL videos. Make sure you follow Lisa Logan. Make sure you follow Jennifer McWilliams. Make sure you follow James Lindsay and learn as much as you can about SEL. Also, make sure you are subscribed to and following Courage is a Habit, courageisAhabit.org. Because there you can find information about how SEL works. You can find even explainers to print out and show your friends, your neighbors, people that are not convinced. It's really simplified in there. And you can find forms to opt your children out of surveys. Now, having said that, and it's what I say every single show, disclaimer is these opt-out forms merely start a paper trail that maybe someday if you have to sue someone, there it is. But the likelihood they're going to protect your child from data harvesting and from manipulation is nil. In some districts, I just found out today from Ann Tatus, the Virginia warrior mom, that in Virginia, they have no textbooks. Why do they have no textbooks? They have no textbooks, so everything potentially can be a survey. So in other words, I just give you forms on the computer for your classwork. Everything's on the Chromebook. Everything's through a fill in the blank, or a form. Everything is a reading that I give you online. And you have to check boxes that you did it and all this kind of, there's no book you could take home. Therefore, every single interaction your child has with curriculum material is an opportunity to gather data, right down to how long did they spend on the screen. So there's data is the new currency. Data is the new currency. It's enormously powerful and it's worth billions upon billions of dollars. Your children are a product at this point. They're a product to be sold. The data that they produce is a product to be sold. So you're going to want to familiarize yourself with all of that. And then I just want to show you quickly that here you have, this is from December 15th of 2022, Iowans for Freedom. This is a group of people who are fighting it in one of the reddest states in the country. They've got red governor, whatever. They just announced, we're going to have school choice. I genuinely believe the governor has no idea. I did. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm naive, but I think she has no idea how bad the schools are in her state. Some of the most woke schools I've ever seen are in Iowa. You'd think they'd be in LA or San Francisco or New York or whatever. Go check out the Ames, Iowa School District. Look at their website, how proud they are of their equity initiatives, how proud they are of their affirmative action and their, how it is our goal that every student will have equal outcomes. They're not even hiding it. They're not even attempting to hide it. Equal outcomes, you guys, in Iowa. So, if you thought this was like a blue state thing or it's Portland, Oregon, or no, it's not. So, they're thinking this is this is what's going to turn Iowa blue eventually. And it's going on through how they're, implement. See, here's James's video. They've been putting this into. So here we go. Below is section 261H.7 of HF 802. This is an act providing for requirements related to racism or sexism trainings at and diversity and inclusion efforts by governmental agencies and entities, school districts, and public post-secondary educational institutions in the state of Iowa. Well, we're going to have school choice in Iowa, public monies that can be used at private schools. And private schools, they can go to charter schools, whatever. You could theoretically homeschool, right? But this is the requirements relating to this in all these different schools, agencies, entities, etc. If you get public money, they're not going to go, oh, it's fine, you don't have to do it. And here's what they're saying. That one race or sex isn't, it says these are divisive concepts. The one race or sex is superior to another race or sex. The United States of America and the state of Iowa are fundamentally or systemically racist or sexist. These are the things that these are the requirements relating to it. Okay. They're not supposed to do this stuff. And yet, it says the article speaks to CASEL competencies and CASEL's role in utilizing transformative SEL. There were a plethora of examples from the manuscript that we wanted to highlight. So in other words, they have a law saying you can't do this stuff. And yet throughout CASEL, they are doing this stuff. Throughout the books that are in the library, they're doing this stuff. So when they do school choice, this law will hold, but it doesn't get around the fact that they're doing it anyway. They're just part of SEL. So here we have racialized oppression was foundational to the establishment of the United States and persists as a vexing, unresolved cluster of problems for sizable portions of the population. These are excerpts from, okay, now here, this one, the following is a long excerpt, but again, this research is referenced as a source to support the adoption of SEL in the CASEL framework. In the United States and many other westernized societies, there are dominant cultural themes of individualism and materialism that suggest that the primary meaning of maturity, success, and happiness is defined as being self-sufficient, autonomous, and financially well off. Although this orientation has brought about technological advances that improve the basic material conditions for many, it also fosters elevated levels of greed, avarice, utilitarianism, and unethical behaviors. Did you know that? Did you know that self-sufficiency and individualism and materialism make you these things? They automatically make you greedy, terrible person. Really? Okay. Seems like a stretch, but and then they go on to say further, this cultural orientation helped launch, sustain, and exacerbate long-standing racial, class, and gender stereotypes that define prevailing notions of in-groups, out-group relations. These stereotypes further inequities. So they're laying blame 100% in all this stuff. This is in the argument for adopting Castle in Iowa. They're laying blame at what we are, at the freedoms that we have, at our very system. It's saying like, oh, this is why it happened. As if there's no racism and no bigotry and no nothing in any communist country. No, for sure the Chinese are totally inclusive, diverse. Those Uyghurs, that's just, well, that's an exception. Black people too. Yeah, well, that's just another exception. Otherwise, they're just totally cool with like whatever you want to be and whatever. Oh, right. You can't practice your religion. But, everybody's equal, except they're really not, because the Chinese Communist Party has better food, better housing, better education for their kids, etc. But, other than that, it's really just the United States and these Western democracies and, just disadvantage and racism and the greed and everything. It's just it. Yeah. That's what it is. It's us. We did it. So if only we were just, more equitable, everything would be fine. Mrs. Meow Mom, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. So again, as you can see, this is just from the first 24 pages of the manuscript. And then that's an article from, this is the Iowa Department of Education. And then we go into, there's some culturally relevant teaching stuff. So my main point in showing you this is even in Iowa. That's the takeaway, even in Iowa. Let's go down the memory hole lane. Shall we take a trip down memory hole lane? This is in 2017. Iowa State professor's book about critical theory selected a critical choice. Somebody sent this stuff to me. So we go back to 2000, Charlotte Iserbit. I wish I could have played it for you. She's talking about all this stuff with education and how, they're going to be automating things. They're going to be picking your child's brain and all that. And then, 2016, the WEF goals. And wow, that sounds familiar. I want to you don't own anything. And blah, blah, blah. Critical theory. Remember, there's no critical race theory in the classroom. 2017 in Iowa, of all places. Anyway, also in Iowa, I'm going to show you some pictures that were sent to me. This was taken in 2021, and I hope I have to pick a different, hold on. I've got to pick a different screen. Hold on. To show you this, because this is kind of wild. All right. I don't know if you can see this. What this is this is outside the door of, I believe it's a language arts class in middle school, like 7th grade or something. It says 100 ways white people can make life less frustrating for people of color. 100 ways. Outside the classroom in a public school. Now, the teacher this is blacked out because the teacher's name is there. The teacher got reported. This did get taken down, but she's still a teacher. But this is what they do. And I'm sure things like this have been put back up again. All right. Getting cornholed in Iowa. Yes, pretty much. All right. So that's something that happened. Another thing is that the same whistleblower attended a meeting recently. I think it was about a week ago, also in Iowa. This was spring 2023. The talk about the equity playbook. The equity playbook for the district. Again, what I've done is I've gone from like very high level WEF, equity, right? And now we're coming down to Iowa. And the reason I'm doing that is to show you that, yes, it's not like the WEF is going, hello, Iowa. Please do this. It's just to let you know that there are literally millions of people who are on board with all this. They just agree. That's where we are. That's the zeitgeist. Okay. Doesn't have to be a grand plot. It just has to be a movement, a shift. And if you're over here and they shift like this, I mean, you're going to feel that swell. You're going to be like, whoa, what do I do now? Okay, well, you got to go the other way. So let's do this. They're really excited. Okay, what I'm going to show you is the next slide. This blew me away. It's very blurry. I don't expect you to see it, but they have goals, big goals. Recruitment and hiring increase representation in each of the following areas. And while I read this to you, I want you to think about how these are connected to improving academic achievement. I don't mean achievement like grades. I mean actual learning. Like the kids read, the kids can do math, the kids understand science, the kids understand history and civics and the way the world works, and they are basically functional in the world. Okay. So, how does this connect? Hire 2 administrative leaders who identify as a race or ethnicity that is underrepresented. How they gonna get like a Pantone chip out and be like, I identify as a Smurf. I mean, how are they gonna decide that? Hire 2 male elementary teachers. Hire 2 elementary teachers who identify as a race or ethnicity that is underrepresented. Hire 2 secondary teachers who identify as a race ethnicity that is underrepresented. Hire 1 counselor who identifies as a race or ethnicity that is underrepresented. Hire 2 male paraprofessionals. Hire 2 paraprofessionals who identify as a race ethnicity is underrepresented. What if you can't find them? What if you find them and they're not very good at their job? They're just avatars for these things. Do you hire them because that was your goal? Notice there's nothing in there about quality or anything. It's just like, we're going to hire people who will fit these characteristics. And they only have to identify as those things. It's like they identify, not you identify them. They identify. Hi, I identify as an underrepresented group. What do you do? Prove it? We want to see your DNA. Like, it's rather ridiculous, actually, and has nothing to do with quality teaching. Also, it gives you a hint that equity as they're defining it is not about things being, you know, equal or equitable. In other words, that you made your best effort to just, it's not like you went out there and said, oh, look, the first 20 white people, let's hire them. I mean, this is about literally saying, okay, 1 of these and 2 of those and 3 of those and 5 of those. Equal outcomes in the most arbitrary, nonsensical, meaningless way, where human beings are just interchangeable as long as they're skinned properly. Literally. Okay. Professional development. Professional development support for buildings is critical to addressing urgent needs while affirming, validating, and in some cases, challenging practices to meet student needs. Now, challenging practices here is code for let's just not do what we were doing, whether it worked or not, because we want things to go our way. Here are a few schools and topics for professional development in the fall semester. So then they have Valley High School, social and emotional learning and microaggressions. Hillside Elementary, transformative social and emotional learning and equity 101. Elementary school, K through 5. Children, the equity, you're going to teach this again. They need to learn to read. Crestview School of Inquiry, transformative social and emotional learning. You starting to see what the priorities are? So we're not saying, what would be a really good step in the right direction towards equal outcomes is making sure all the kids can read. We need to make sure that every kid gets out of elementary school reading proficiently. Now, that doesn't seem to be on the priority list, but we want to make sure we get those teachers who look a certain way. We'll make sure we run a jobs program for people who are skinned the right way. So there's that. All right. Now I'm going to back up again and go back to my other screens. Okay. I have so much stuff to show you. And now I'm going to talk to you about, since we just were touching on the topic of reading, you may have noticed, parents, that your kids are not reading a whole lot of fiction. And when they're reading fiction, it's like, graphic novels, or it's struggle literature, so-and-so saw her father gunned down by the police and it traumatized her and now she's fighting for justice. Or, you know, he was a refugee from a foreign land where the US dropped bombs and everybody died. I mean, like that might be the fictionalized account of something that actually happened in the not so distant past, and that might be their fiction. But you don't see them reading a lot of older classic literature. Well, this is from this week. Position statement. This is from the National Council of the Teachers of English. Position statement on the role of nonfiction literature. This is really depressing. And I have this up, but I actually had some screenshots. Well, I'm just going to read this to you. Okay. Contemporary nonfiction for young people plays a crucial role in the notice it said contemporary. In the reading and writing lives of K-12 students. It is a rich and compelling genre that supports students' development as critically, they always had to throw the word critically in there, don't they? Visually and informationally literate 21st century thinkers and creators. Can we ever just be thinkers and creators? Must our children function for the whole century? I mean, really? It's kind of, 21st century. Like, it's so, they want you to think that anybody who's a child today in school is some kind of major groundbreaker. When probably you had kids and were like, I'm cool with my kids just growing up and living, a pretty similar life to what I've lived, or maybe like slightly better. But I don't think you had this, they're going to change the world and usher in a new transformative century. Like, to me, that's kind of scary. I'll be honest with you, because I'm like, I can't envision what that looks like. And I've got enough anxiety around what my children's future is going to be for each individual one, just about things like, are they going to be happy and, like enjoy college or whatever, here, or get a job. It's like 21st century thinkers. The purpose of this position statement is to propose a paradigm shift for teaching and learning with nonfiction literature in K-12 education. This is putting this is bringing the horse along after they shoved the cart in your face like a long time ago. They've been there. They've been there. Kids have been not reading fiction for years. Nice of them to finally tell us what they've been doing, but they've been doing this for a long time. Unlike many textbooks and materials written for online or print-based school curriculum, nonfiction literature, is it nonfiction literature? Is it really? Or is it nonfiction? It's just nonfiction. Literature is literature. Nonfiction is nonfiction. But okay. For young people, does more than communicate information. Nonfiction literature contextualizes primary source evidence. Okay, you know what this is? Contextualize primary source evidence is a big fancy way of saying it gives us the opinions. It gives them the opinions we want them to have about the primary source evidence. So we contextualized it. Yeah, we just kind of like, massaged it, told them what it means. Like, oh, that primary source information, it means this. That's the context we want you to have. No figuring it out for yourself. Here it is. Editorializes would be a better way to put it. Offers multiple perspectives on current and historic events, except conservative ones, or except traditional ones, or except Enlightenment values oriented ones. No, doesn't do that. And shares new scientific discoveries. Contemporary nonfiction addresses historical silences. Historical silences. What does that mean? Explores historic and contemporary events rooted in racism. They're always rooted. Ever notice that? Rooted in racism, oppression, and violence, and highlights courageous trailblazers and organized groups working towards societal transformation and liberation. What they're telling you here is contemporary nonfiction is 100% biased in favor of the New World Order. That's what they're telling you. It is absolutely slanted. This so-called nonfiction is not nonfiction. It's opinion literature. It's propaganda. This is a big fancy position statement on we'll be using propaganda in the classroom now. And we're going to dress it up. We're going to put lots of lipstick on that pig. We're going to like really lip it up. Yep. Yep. It's propaganda, is what it is. Okay. Nonfiction empowers young people in the face of current and emerging challenges locally and globally. Again, we take kids who can barely read and we elevate them to like, we empower them because they don't need to be empowered to do much more than complain, stomp their feet, and pound their fists, such as racial, cultural, social, and economic injustice, censorship, and disinformation. Disinformation? You mean like the crap you're giving them to read? That disinformation? When you contextualize the primary sources. Okay, got it. And the climate crisis in the urgency of this moment. This entire thing is an opinion. This whole thing is an opinion. This is the National Council of the Teachers of English. This whole thing is teachers of English. Does this really look like social sciences to you? Does to me. Where's the part about rhetoric? Where's the part about beauty, truth, anything? A good story? No. All right. In this urgency of the nonfiction for young people has never been more vibrant and vital. Okay. And then they have, it's published for all ages in many formats, board books. Picture books, beginner readers, graphic non. I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm picturing the, it's like Ibram X. Kennedy's book of like the anti-racist baby. We're in a little board book going, racism is rooted in systems of inequity, little child. Like, oh yes, what a fun story. It's not quite the foot book or, green eggs in hand, but I'm sure it's much better. It's much more vital and vibrant. Featuring engaging text, captivating art, and dynamic design that inspires as well as informs. Today's nonfiction is ideal for a wide range of educational uses as well as independent reading. I'm trying to picture the little kid is going to go, Mommy, I'm going to sit down now and read the true story of the horrible racists that founded this country. I don't think so, but all right. If you say so, maybe they will. I shouldn't be laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing so much, except to say that it's so ridiculous to me that these people do this. They're so full of their own importance. It's galling. It's really galling. Whereas this young people need adults who foster access to high quality nonfiction books because they appreciate the power of these titles to excite and inspire, as well as inform readers of all ages. Young people appreciate that, do they? Okay. A just and equitable education system that values and empowers all learners is one in which every child, tween and teen, has the space to explore their curiosities, interests, and identities. With so much to offer young people as readers and thinkers, nonfiction should play a far more robust role in the reading and learning lives of young people in and out of school. And again, this goes back to Common Core. They've been shoving nonfiction down our kids' throats since Common Core was adopted. And it was always this dry opinion propaganda crap. Only they've just gotten more clever. Now they're packaging it with, this art, this vibrant, beautiful artwork and the board books and the this and the that. And, they're making it so compelling with these characters, high drama and all this, even though it's nonfiction. And they're selling it to you. They're telling you, mom and dad, this is so much better. And I hate to tell you this, there are a lot of people that think this is great. I've talked to parents like, well, I think it's great. They don't have to read those dry, boring old fiction classics. Oh, they don't have to read this. They don't have to read that. But thankfully, for every 5 or 6 people who think it's better for them to read nonfiction and, learn some facts because that's what they think they're learning, you've got a few who are like, they're not going to read To Kill a Mockingbird. They're not going to read, pick a title that we read as kids. You're not going to read any number of these wonderful stories. No, they're not. They're just not. And, this is why you can't get the propaganda in this way in the nonfiction. It's underutilized. They're really pushing it on the teachers. Information literacy crisis. This is where the information literacy, by the way, is their euphemism for every opinion I don't agree with is disinformation. Mhm. Every source that I don't approve of is fake. And so information literacy is to teach your children how to go to these sources and teach them how to trust these people. And if you don't know that that's what you're supposed to do, you're information illiterate. That's what information literacy is now. With an overabundance of information and increase of misinformation, it's just a fancy way of saying, don't look over there, look over here. Now you're information literate. Um, so anyway, they want to get for the very young, developmentally appropriate nonfiction books. You mean like Jacob's New Dress? Like that? Is that is that developmentally appropriate? That might count as fiction. I'm not really sure. There probably is a person named Jacob who was given a dress to wear to school at this point. So maybe it's nonfiction. I have no idea. Anyway, just wanted you to see that. Thought that was kind of relevant to your lives. And now we will go and just peruse the wonderful world of my dissonant dispatch file, which has a lot of good stuff. Now, getting back to the WEF, since I was talking about it before. Christopher Wray was there from the FBI. So while I said I agreed that we shouldn't worry about the FBI being like puppet masters per se, I definitely think we should be concerned about somebody like Christopher Wray of the FBI being over there talking about how there's increased cooperation between the FBI and private companies. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that needs to be happening. And I don't think that's something to tout. And when you watch this video, he talks about it like it's great. We're making great progress. Do you guys feel good about that? Do you feel good about the great progress that the FBI is making and working with private corporations? Of course, they say it's to, prevent things like, disinformation and cyber crimes and hate speech and things. But we know what the FBI was busy doing over at Facebook and Twitter, don't we? Pretty much reshaping the electoral landscape of the United States. But it's all for your safety. You know, burying Hunter Biden's laptop was, I'm sure, really important for national security. Definitely. So there's that. So the WEF is not something to like ignore either, because when we have the UN and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, they do everything in their power to make sure certain people are always at war and other people gain power these people, but it's not keeping peace. And the WEF is welcoming people like this, basically a fascist, to the stage to talk about how successful their efforts at fascism are. Well, they get rounds of applause. So I think it's relevant. I don't think it's something to not worry about, because again, they get applause. The rest of the world goes, good job. And money comes in and support comes in and all kinds of things come in that keep this going. All right. So that's that. Oh God, I want to play this. I've got to figure out the sound situation. So what I'm going to do is, I've really got to do this because there's no reason that that this isn't working. I think what it is the operating system updated and it kicked out my my setup. But if I can find it again, I will get it set up again, because you got to hear this lady if you haven't heard it. She is talking about she's talking about Elon Musk and how very concerned she is about freedom of, or about speech, and there are rules. And if Can you hear me? Okay. Something's up with the sound. Hold on. It's supposed to be StreamYard mic. Hold on. Sure. Safari. Oh, I know why. This is supposed to work. Okay. It's supposed to work. Okay. So you can hear me now, but when I play her, you can't hear me. Let's see what happens.
Knowledgeable people, with the lawyers, with the sociologists who understood that they have to behave in some decent way, not to cause really big harm to the society. I always felt that this notion of responsibility was there. So this is what I don't feel from Elon Musk personally. So, our message was clear: we have the rules which have to be complied with.
So she's saying, okay, so you can hear it. All right. So she's saying there'll be sanctions because there's just they worked with sociologists and law enforcement and all these people that for to protect people, whatever. She doesn't want freedom of speech. She's basically saying, but in this nice, I'm your Aunt Kathy. We were just worried about people. If you don't comply with our regulations, we're going to issue sanctions to Elon Musk for Twitter. She thought things were going great with the FBI. She's not happy now. Now that they are basically kicked to the curb, she's not happy. So that's a new development. So again, the WF doesn't matter, but they kind of do because people like this are at the WF. This is what the people at the UN and the WF and where they have where the Euro EU Commissioner for Values and Transparency. These people have some degree of power, and they do this wacky junk. So those are two things that I wanted to show you for sure. Another thing I wanted to bring you up to speed on, when we talk about propaganda, we talk about how they're creating this new religion of equity and CRT and so forth. And that's like the holy of holies is equity. And this week, you've probably been hearing the buzz about Governor DeSantis and how it's so racist that he doesn't want the college boards, African American AP, whatever studies class, in Florida schools. And people have said that, why wouldn't you want an African American history class? Oh my God, that's so racist. Why wouldn't you want that? Somebody in his administration in the Florida Department of Education made this handy dandy chart that helps explain that. So in case you haven't seen it, I'm going to share it with you. These are topics from the AP course. By the way, this is created by the College Board. So in case you were under the illusion that the College Board was objective and, nonpartisan, wrong. So from the AP course in African American Studies, intersectionality and activism includes reading from Kimberly Crenshaw. We've got Angela Davis, communist, Marxist writer. Okay, so we've got that. Kimberly Crenshaw, known as the founder of intersectionality, editor of critical race theory, and with Angela Davis. Yay. Then we have Black queer studies. If you're thinking it's gonna be like, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Thomas Sowell, no, no. Roderick Ferguson, who exclaims, we have to encourage and develop practices whereby queerness isn't a surrender to the status quo of race, class, gender, and sexuality. It means building forms of queerness that reject the given. This is from a topic in the African American Studies curriculum. By the way, these violate Florida state law, just so you know. Movement for Black Lives. If you're not familiar with the Movement for Black Lives, you should be, because that makes BLM look tame. The Movement for Black Lives, which I've covered on this channel with Charles Love, is like the parent organization up above BLM and many, 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 many other activist organizations. They have draft legislation that provides, they've got draft legislation for what it would look like to empty the prisons and have a Department of Equity at the federal level. So, not unimportant people as far as what they're aiming to do. This includes reading from Leslie K. Jones, who wrote, "Every day, Black people produce an unquantifiable amount of content for the same social media corporations that reproduce the white supremacist superstructures that oppress us." Black feminist literary thought includes bell hooks, author of many intersectionality texts, and in the recommended reading states, "I began to use the phrase in my work, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, because I wanted to have some language that would actually remind us of continually of the interlocking systems of domination that define our reality." Public schools, college board, AP class. That means if they pass the test, they get college credit for taking this propaganda-laden Marxist claptrap. Topic 4.30, the reparations movement. Okay, awesome. And then Black study and the Black struggle in the 21st century. Again, with the 21st century, I need a sound effect. I need like some kind of sound to sound off every time I have to read 21st century. Somebody suggest something and figure out like what my sound effect should be. And I want to incorporate that into my shows because it's getting ridiculous. Or at least I should have some beverage here that I have to like drink every time. And then this one has Robin D.G. Kelly argues that activism rather than the university system is the catalyst for social transformation. Isn't that what you wanted your kid to go to K-12 to learn how to be or have as the next step to become a professional activist? Anyway, so next time you're on the internet and somebody says like, "Oh, Ron DeSantis is just a racist and he doesn't want this African American studies class because he doesn't want kids to learn about slavery." By the way, this would be offered to, juniors and seniors, probably seniors. So you kind of have to scratch your head and say, if they haven't learned about slavery by this point, I don't think this is going to help. But that's not what this is. It's barely even African American studies. It would more accurately be racial justice studies or racialized justice studies or critical race theory studies would be more accurate. So there's that. And the Biden White House is even lying. Everybody's going after the governor. You can not like Ron DeSantis. I'm not sitting here saying like, "Oh my God, he's God" or anything, but he's not wrong about this. Your tax dollars shouldn't be paying for that. Then I want to spend a little bit of time on the role of, I'm trying to think which to do first. No, first I'm going to go back to James's this thread about resilience. So we've talked about SEL. We've talked about how SEL fits into the movement towards pluralism, the movement towards equity as the holy of holies. And what James is reminding us is that there are no neutral words in education, and resilience is another one. So there are a lot of people today saying, our kids aren't very resilient. Be careful, because they'll turn around and say, "You're right. We need to make resilient kids," except they don't mean resilient like you mean resilient. You mean resilient like, don't blame everybody else for your problems. Something bad happens, dust yourself off, pick yourself up, figure out what you can do and move on. You need to be able to bounce back in this life and face, problems. That's not what they mean. He says, by the way, resilience isn't a neutral word in the education world. It's wholly captured. If your state, its governors, their spouses, or other officials are pushing resilience and youth mental health, I advise you to ask a lot of hard questions. So here we have SEL for SDGs. SDGs are sustainable development goals. This is just a fancy way of saying your kids need to put up with eating the bugs. They need to be thick-skinned to live without natural gas heat. I mean, I'm exaggerating ever so slightly, but not much. So it's emotional resilience, like be able to tolerate the crap they're going to throw at you, where your lifestyle's not going to be as good as it was in your childhood because we're taking your toys away. So let's see. This is in Haverford, Pennsylvania Township. They're using these same words. SEL as a lever for social justice and equity, social emotional wellness, diversity and inclusion, whole child development. It's everywhere, you guys. It's everywhere. And then Andrew Gutman says he's the one whose daughter was at Brearley School in New York, and they left, and I think they even moved. I think they left the state. I wish people would understand that nearly every word in the education world has a non-colloquial meaning and has been weaponized. There are no neutral words. This is why it's hard to explain to parents what is happening. You have to translate every word. That's why I have a channel. I wouldn't be here. I'd be doing any number of other things. other than sitting here talking to you tonight, much as I love you all dearly, because if you could just read this and understand it, because you'd be terrified, but it's all in code. Resilience implies hardship, and like they like to claim people in cities will need resilience against climate change and disease in the future, while at the same time telling you they're going to implant chips that predict your every disease and they'll be able to cure you on the spot. But you can't get any treatment past 75 because we don't need too many people because of carbon. So we need to die by 75, says, Ezekiel Emanuel. And they keep talking on both sides of the mouth. We're going to save you from diseases while we're killing you from starvation. I mean, okay. And so that was the kind of the last, I think. Nope. Two more things on SEL. Here we have this from Castle through Second Step. The people who brought I know it looks like a green circle, but it's really a green square. Those people. Yeah. So it's okay. Castle and Transformative Social Emotional Learning is here to help via Second Step curriculum. Any sixth grader should know this. Check it out. Sixth grade. What's the difference between sexual harassment and flirting? Sixth grade. Oh my God. Sexual harassment is when someone bothers someone else with words, actions, or pictures of a sexual nature. Flirting is welcome attention that makes you feel good, flattered, and neutral. Well, by this definition, minus the pictures of a sexual nature, but everything else, my 10-year-old in elementary school was sexually harassed, and the school told her, because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, that she didn't have any choice but to be friends with this little boy, because we love everyone here and we're friends with everyone equally at this school. So they can't quite make up their mind about whether something is sexual harassment or you're just not being inclusive enough. Depends on the age, I guess. Maybe once you hit, 12, now it's, or 11, now it's okay to go, can you leave me alone? I'm with my friends. Stop following me around like a bad odor, because that's what the little boy was doing. All right. And then we have Kelly, who in September watched the United Nations Transforming Education Summit in New York. The focus was Marxian agendas, and Marxist Paulo Freire was also esteemed. Are global agendas making their ways into schools? Yes, the leaders of two of our nation's teachers' unions spoke there. And so here they are, Randy Weingarten, talking about, they're talking about how great this is. Look at this. The 100th anniversary, Paulo Freire. I was so glad to see my friend Mugwina Malukli, whatever, VP of EduInt at the Transformative Education Summit. How does teachers get sustainable development goal agendas into schools? Easy. Supplemental curricula. Ed Tech, SEL, WISC, this is WSCC, comprehensive sexuality ed, and refashion subjects like science into a sort of activist creator class where students bear the weight of solving SDGs. So when they have we have our creator class today, or we have our ed tech class, and a lot of these are required now in school districts. I have to take ed tech. I have to take, careers or something. All the projects they give them to do are geared around solving some crisis, some, climate change, whatever. They're all around that. That's how they weave it in. The children don't get to choose their own subject matter. Some may prefer to say that global actors are not influencing the U.S. and that a focus on global agendas is a distraction. We talked about this, the WEF. Don't worry about the WEF. It's just a distraction. Focus on here. I would disagree with those sentiments, as would I. Social emotional learning, comprehensive sexuality education, WISC, and other agendas we see have global influences because they're so popular. And it's not just ideology that makes them popular. It's money, the oldest reason in the book. SEL is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Queer theory, which goes along with the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the race Marxism. Look, we just saw African-American studies, which had queer stuff in it too. They're like this, okay? It's all money. That you turn a kid into a lifelong patient, money. You sell a program for data gathering, money on both ends. Sell me the program, ka-ching, ka-ching. Sell me the data you collected the program, ka-ching, ka-ching. Buy the data and then use it to sell people other stuff, ka-ching, ka-ching. It's just money, 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 money. And like I said, your kids are just being like harvested, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So it's not just, they're not all Marxists. Many of them are, but a lot of them are just thinking, this is a great way to make money and have job security into the future when the AI take over. Because a lot of the people involved in this don't have any skills, hard skills. They don't have any particular knowledge that only they would have, right? And that an AI wouldn't have. So this creates this kind of job security. I'll be one of the people selling the stuff that turns the kids into whatever it is that we need for the AI to do. I don't think that'll last forever either. I think they will be replaced too, and they don't even realize it. In December 2021, I came across this from December Spotlight issue of California Council for the Social Studies. Notice the Sustainable Development Goals and the hashtag. Since then, I've seen this agenda increasing. It's just everywhere. And at the lowest level, teachers, guidance counselors, principals, they look at this and they go, who doesn't like human rights? What? Who doesn't want equity? What? Who doesn't want a clean planet? Why do you hate clean air? Don't you want us to cure disease? Don't you want to solve world hunger? What are you going to say? Yeah, but not like this, not by turning my child into the Matrix plugged in. So California already has global agendas in education, as do other states. When we ignore agendas as they begin, we also fail to address them before they're embedded into everything. Decades ago, no one thought critical race theorists would take off, but they did. And if you've seen the Project Veritas films that are floating around this week, you know that even when you try to pass laws to nip it in the bud, they just laugh. They sit back and laugh and go like, yeah, we just call it something else. It's in there. We just lie. They don't know. We call it something different. So that's why it matters. All right. And then James Lindsay says, if unchecked, school choice will turn out like ESG, a central party of the state. Corporations will determine which schools get the money via curriculum, technology, and requirements. I've been saying this for months. I get a lot of heat for it. It's like, why are you against school choice? I'm like, obviously, I'm not against parents choosing how their children are educated. I'm against government owning this process. You're just moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic because they're going to decide with the push for this kind of religion and pluralism. Oh, you don't have CRT in your school or your program or your curriculum or your book or whatever that is going to be counted as education in this country to be bought with the money that we're giving you. No money. You're not doing SEL at home in your little homeschool or your co-op or your private school or your charter school. Oh, no money. There's no digital partnership with Google to data mine your students or similar, some other corporation. No money. Is it going to happen today? No. Are there governors out there who are just literally unwittingly going, yay, school choice, it's so great, I'm so happy? Of course. There's nothing as sad as a politician who potentially has the power to at least slow this down, who doesn't know about it, or they've heard of it, but they don't believe it, or they've a little bit heard of it, but they think they can get out ahead of it while not understanding it completely. They are everywhere. And if they're newly elected, count on it. Count on it. I mean, until we start electing people like James and Kelly and Lisa, who aren't interested in running, they don't know. They don't know. And even if they did know, they might not be inclined to stop it, because who's going to fund their next campaign but for the people behind this crap? All right. So let's move on to the more salacious content. I'm sorry to do this to you, but it is connected. Like I said, it's connected to all of the queer stuff, which is connected to the religion stuff, it's all connected. James says, one of the two primary purposes of Drag Queen Story Hour is discussed here: Marxist and sexual grooming, specifically to the Marxist queer Gnosticism cult. The other purpose is escalating provocation, tempting you to resist. Now, I really want to drive this point home. This is so important. I've hinted around the edges at this before, but James does a much better job of articulating what it is and why it is in terms of provocation. So we know the constructive goal of Drag Queen Story Hour is to queer the world. I mean, and that doesn't mean literally turn each kid into somebody who's trans or queer. It means to have them throw out all norms, all gender roles, the family, forget about it. We don't need a nuclear family anymore. Just queer is sort of a word to stand in for just absolutely trash the social order, and yes, make lots and lots of queer people. I mean, queer as in sexually nondescript, everything, everybody's everything. There's no gender. Nothing is as it was. Okay. So you'll have nothing as it was in the economy, nothing as it was, in terms of race, nothing as it is in terms of sexuality. So the family falls apart, disintegrates, and all the major institutions of the traditional Western Enlightenment order are done. Okay. But that's the constructive one, is turn those people. The destructive one, or the provocative one, is to make you do stuff. You who are opposed to that, the more they push you, the more they come and take your kids. I mean, literally go, we're taking your kid now because you didn't let them have the affirmation or whatever. They're hoping against hope that somebody's going to get violent. They're hoping. This is what he says. This is in the American Thinker, so you can read this article. It's called Operation Drag Floyd is an act of inconvenience warfare. Therefore, as an act puts a number of dangers into the environment in its operationally preparing. Submission destroys kids. Reaction, and a third that might be called solution. These all suit the enemy. So we have the submission. That's that constructive one where we're going to destroy the kids and the families. We're just going to destroy that. Then reaction. Parents are going to flip out. Okay. And then the solution, in comes the strong man or woman to solve it all. Okay. Submission is obviously a danger to their advantage. Some or many children are exposed to grooming, psychological damage, and the potential for eventual self-destruction at the end of a path of destructive activism that wrecks families in the community, right? Done. Reaction is another danger. Some people react perhaps violently to the provocation to protect kids. That reaction is fed into the narrative arc already in media. Rising anti-LGBTQ hate and stochastic terrorism. These must not happen. Do not be violent. Discourage violence. I cannot stress this enough. And unfortunately, violence right now in their world, like a reaction could just be yelling and screaming at a school board meeting. Like, you have to be as calm as possible. It's not placating them. It's actually a strategy to not play into their hands. Best move is to just get the hell out. Passive aggression, just leave. Exit stage right. Okay? Just leave. Because that they can't really argue that's violence. But anything else you do, I don't want my kid filling out these forms. I don't want my kid in this class. You can't read drag queen story out. Oh my goodness. So much hate. I mean, if you're called a domestic terrorist for speaking at a school board meeting, imagine what they're going to classify as violence. Meanwhile, they burn down cities because reasons. Anyway, your natural inclination to protect children will be turned into a moment like Derek Chauvin with George Floyd or Greta Thunberg's fake arrest the other day. They're good at this and trained for it, and the narrative arc is already prepared. Big losing. Be careful. They could even stage something where somebody gets hurt and they turn around and they blame a parent, or they blame, somebody on the right or whatever. The third big danger is solution, a strong man who actually serves the interests of the UN or WF from the right. And again, when we say serves their interests, they don't have to be on their payroll. They just have to be the same worldview, pushing to achieve the same goal. And if they come on the scene and they have that charisma or they have that ability to do it, they'll probably get the support of those entities. They'll line up behind them and go, thank you for coming to our party. Here's some money, okay? So that's, be careful who you celebrate and who you throw your loyalty behind. Let's try really, really hard to avoid hero worship of somebody goes, oh, I'm going to protect the kids. I don't care who it is, even Governor DeSantis. Be very careful with the cult of personality, because it could be a trap. All right. So it says, if the provocation becomes severe enough and the apparent, it will rise and pave a path to a solution to the problem through destruction of queer Marxists and associates. You will cheer his abuses out of desperation. So somebody might come on the scene and be like, we're going to lock them all up as deviants, or, no more of this and blah, 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 but whatever. And you might just be tempted to go, yeah, except the person powerful enough to do those things can come after you too. Many, many people, Hitler included, rose to power saying they're going to get rid of the degeneracy that was right. Like in Berlin, it was getting a little crazy. with clubs and all kinds of things that look real similar to today. And people applauded and welcomed him in. He's going to clean house. No more of this garbage. Yeah, well, then what happened? That kind of power can be turned for other uses. If the provocation becomes severe enough and the apparent lack of solutions becomes desperate enough, we will gladly hand over our rights so we can punish the groomers. This is the pit. We must not fall into the pit. We won't get out. We must maintain liberty and fight for good. Okay? It's very, very important. The Marxists and queer provocateurs are the left hand of an evil enemy taunting you so it can justify destroying you with the solution in its right hand. This is unconventional warfare and an expensive, thought-out stratagem. Democratic polls cheer it on. They are seditious. Well, we always knew that. So what can be done? Protect your kids individually. Tell friends and neighbors to protect their kids individually. Do not try to save them all. I've said it every day, right? Better education, one child at a time. I'm presenting this to all of you in one audience, but I'm really speaking to you as individual people. Publicize the escalation so the consciences get shocked and the half captured, half asleep will be forced to recognize it, but just warn them against taking drastic action. Do not be violent. Do not encourage violence. Condemn violence as a solution or reaction. Spread the word about the logic of the operations. Do not trust strongmen with solutions. Those may be proffered to you on purpose. Break the narrative with truth. Tell the truth with evidence about Drag Queen Story Hour, et cetera, et cetera. So couldn't agree more. 100%. That is absolutely what the game is. Okay. We talk about useful idiots, et cetera, and so forth. Well, this whole queer thing, they're the first ones. Nobody wants to believe it, but they'll be the first ones up against the wall, if the proverbial wall. They're being used to provoke the majority into acting stupid to bring about somebody who's just going to go, all your rights are mine now. So you just have to be very careful. All right. So then I want to show you a couple of examples real quick. This comes to us from Candace Mercer. She was on the channel once. I interviewed her. I love her. Lovely, lovely woman. Artist, politician. She ran for office. She's so great. Anyway, this is from Chinook Middle School, and this material has been made available for 11 to 12-year-olds to access if they complete their assignments early. It's like a perk that they get access to this stuff. So I want to show you some of this. Okay. So there she is. There she is, Miss Tessie. It's Spirit Week. Okay. This is what she's offering here. Pages from a book. This is about Leather Daddy. This Daddy Dom leather community. If you're not familiar with what daddying is or what a daddy is, this term originated in the BDSM, leather, and kink communities. These are 11 and 12-year-olds that she would be sharing this with. Yeah, a little history of that. Then some stuff about kink. Isn't that a lovely picture? Yeah, that's a man strapped to the 11 and 12-year-olds. Kink, kinkster. This is a reward. Taint, tea room, tender. You don't want to know how old I was when I learned those terms. Like I was like 5 minutes ago. No, seriously, 11 and 12. Okay. This is this person, Nadine Tessie, bachelor's in history. It says MIT, not MIT, the school, English Language Arts and Social Studies, Evergreen State College. And this is the book, The Queen's English. These are the books that she reads, that she posts online for everyone to see. Okay. Ta-Nehisi Coates, Just Mercy, Angela Davis, How to Be an Anti-Racist, A Pound of Flesh, The New Jim Crow, Teaching for Black Lives. There she is again. Flags in the Classroom, middle school. There she is. Okay. And from her reading, from her materials in the school, she's got a TikTok. This is her door, Black Lives Matter, discussion guide for the book, and then all the more images from the book. Meanwhile, in Olympia, here's a 2-minute clip of what Taluna Reed, our newest board member, thinks about poor white people. She's considered by the board to be a suitable role model for our children. And then this goes to Rumble. Let's see what she has to say.
Before I continue, it's important for me to state that every person in this community has a right to question candidates and elected officials And we have a duty and moral obligation to answer to each of you.
Fuck the police. Both black women were murdered by the fucking police. And it amazes me how those pigs can sit over there to watch us peacefully talk about what we want changed in this state. It amazes me. And they don't pay attention until we tear shit up. So just see, before I get started, tear everything up in this fucking city until they do what we want them to do. Fuck the police, man. I'm ready to go home, shit. Hell, I got a parking ticket for 2013. They called me the other day. And you're 2013. Well, we're gonna get the win when this motherfucker gets held accountable. This has made me a better person, though.
Oh yeah, she's a great person.
Made me more aware. It's giving me a voice to come and sit on Jay Bernie's front lawn and talk shit.
If I can't beat him, if I'm not gonna join him, but I'm gonna infiltrate, and I'm gonna get in there, and I'm gonna be a voice from the inside. They've deemed me a threat to security, and they need to.
There are poor white people. There are marginalized groups that are not people of color. White folks, you had a 400-year head start. I do not feel sorry for you if you're poor. We need to tear shit up for that.
Town that is historically racist. I mean, that's the culture of the city. You guys are changing that, but we cannot change it until we actually infiltrate these positions. That's bullshit. We need to really, really hold people.
So you get it, right? We don't need to hear her foul mouth anymore. But yeah, she's yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, newest board member. So you wonder why this is happening. It's just the degradation of the culture and all that. And so people want to say, you know, like, I don't pay attention to WEF. It doesn't matter. It's like, okay, you don't have to pay attention to the WEF specifically if you don't want to. You really kind of don't have to. But what you need to know is what they're for and what the billionaires that run it and are, you know, behind it and have a lot of influence and geopolitics and so forth have to say. It is trickling down to result in that foul-mouthed person who sits on a school board now. And that's where it comes from. Why is she emboldened? Why does she feel free to say the things she says? Why are we pushing contextualized nonfiction? Why is SEL in every single thing we do? Why are we showing 11 and 12-year-olds books about kink? Why are there drag queen story hours? Why do we have to hire people by skin color or self-identification as a marginalized group? Because it's all feeding into this idea that the number one most important thing to happen before the year 2030 is the US out of power, the US, you know, off its little pedestal, and the economy of the world functioning totally differently, everything running on data. AI is pretty much how the white collar economy works. Your kids are just little data mines, and then they're going to be assigned to their little pod job or with their little thing, whatever. You don't need to own stuff, just rent it. It all feeds the same goal. And we'll come up with a one world religion to keep you pacified and just equity. I want to pray to the God of equity. And I'm resilient. That's why I don't mind eating the bugs. An egg? What's an egg? Anyway, so that's what I had for you today. It was quite a lot. I hope I didn't overwhelm you completely, but it's just been, you know, it's been piling up, and I'm going to try to do these once a week on Monday nights. Try to keep it focused to a topic, but you know, it just keeps coming up. This SEL stuff, I may have to keep talking about it a bunch of times and bring you just different viewpoints on it. And hopefully you feel versed enough that you can go back and talk to people who aren't paying attention to this and just let them know. In summary, the elevator speech is there are two competing visions for what our children's future should be. And the future of education really depends on each and every one of us and what we do for the future of our individual children and their education. Because right now, they're gearing it around a future that many of us who appreciate the past, the good parts of the past and the direction we were heading, don't want to go to their future. But if you leave your kids in these schools where they're doing these things, your kids are going to live in that future, whether you want them to or not. So that's just, you can't change that. You can't. But you can change things for your kid and for you to a greater degree than you think. And if more people did that and more people push back, their house of cards would fall apart. It's big, it's powerful, it's everywhere, but I don't think it's inevitable. I have faith in the United States. I have faith in their incompetence, that it won't take much sand in the gears. But you got to throw the sand in the gears. And the best way to do that is to leave any way you can. Also buy print books and hoard them like a squirrel. All right. So it's been fun. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. And check out the website if you haven't already, thereasonwewillearn.com, and check out the forum. You can join for 30 days free. You just sign up. Yes, you put a credit card in, but if you cancel before 30 days, if you don't like it, if it's not for you, you're not going to get charged. The idea of the paywall, just so you know, is just to keep out just like random trolls and stuff, but it's there for us to introduce ourselves as people who want to build something different, want better for our kids, and have conversations that are a little more in depth than you're going to have on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, that don't go scrolling by, that are like contained in a forum structure where you can really, dig in and also talk to people laterally like this. So check it out, thereasonwelearn.com, and please like, share, comment on this, subscribe, the whole 9 yards, and I will see you guys next week. Okay. Thanks for watching. Bye.